I'll just say, before Grace kicks off, there's a guy called Raj Thamothram who runs Preventable Surprises, who Grace is an advisor to, who I saw him putting something out on the Amazon fires on LinkedIn. I've known Raj for a really long time, and he's brilliant at just questioning things all the time. And he was asking why the PRI and others weren't dealing with this, and it was that got me involved in the conversation around actually investors are completely integrally linked through to what's happening in the Amazon right now. So I'm delighted that Grace, who's an expert in this area, Raj said she'll do a better job. So really, really pleased that you could join us today, Grace. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, perfect. Okay, well, thank you, Julia, for the invitation to be part of this year's SRI event. I am delighted to be able to come over and talk to you a little bit about, the Amazon deforestation. I mean, not delighted about this part, actually, and the role of investors and their clients. I am Dr. Grace Souza. I teach, research, and advise on the implementation of social, developmental, and environmental policies concerning the Brazilian Amazon. As you all have been aware, the Brazilian, Bolivian, Peruvian, Venezuelan Amazon, they have been burning to unprecedented levels, prompting what scientists have been arguing to be a tipping point. As the largest tropical rainforest still standing, the deforestation of the Amazon represents a huge loss, not only to the indigenous populations of all 9 countries that share the Amazon basin, but also the whole global community. The Amazon absorbs 90 to 140 billion tons of carbon that would otherwise contribute to the climate crisis. It has 15 of the world's freshwater, responsible for most of the rainfall necessary to the agricultural frontier in the neighboring countries. It also has 10% of the world's biodiversity, representing an enormous medicine potential, including anti-cancer and anti-malaria drugs. As much as the current Brazilian government, led by the actual President Jair Bolsonaro, is to blame for reducing conservation control measures and for propagating a vision that development means large-scale monoculture, mining, and big infrastructure problems, at the expense of the rainforest and its people, it's important to remind ourselves that we are all connected through global economy and its impacts to climate change. Therefore, investors, companies, and consumers have much to be blamed and a crucial accountability role to play. As advocate by not only the environmentalists, but also the school children and students worldwide during the global climate strike happening this week included, perhaps some of your own kids, nieces, or nephews are, part of this endeavor. There is no planet B. We live in a global climate emergency, and governments have a decade to honor their commitments of reducing carbon emission to net zero by 2025. However, the strategies to address the global call for sustainability and climate change have mostly focused on renewable energy, industrial efficiency, and low carbon economy, often overlooking the pressure our consumerist lifestyle put on the forest and the global south. From an indigenous perspective, scientists, economists, policymakers, the Western society in general, have been failing to notice that the environment and society is part of a whole. So far, we have perceived the environment as raw materials, something to be exploited, commodified, transformed, studied, somewhere to be visited, enjoyed, used. This perception is rooted in capitalist, colonial, and patriarchal dimensions that have failed. The bottom line is, after 30 years of sustainable development discussions and practice, we are still considering how to keep global warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius, when the reality is that we are heading towards a 4 degrees Celsius warming and a greater inequality. And since we are all here, let me be specific, investors, they need to listen to the indigenous people and realize that we are all part of the natural environment. Regardless of whether you live in the urban cities or deep in the rainforest, our bodies are composed by more than 50% of water. We breathe the environment, we eat the environment. Our actions are intrinsically connected with the natural environment. And because we are part of this environment, we should not be expecting the indigenous people to be the ones looking after it alone. Investors and the private sector have been talking the talk through corporate social responsibility, socially responsible investing, and now called environmental social governance initiatives. Yet, the worldwide outrage of the Amazonian fires served to put a spotlight on the fact that many of these traders and investors have not actually been fulfilling their commitments. Some of the main drivers of deforestation in the Brazilian Amazon are due to global demands for commodities such as beef, leather, and soy, mostly imported by China, Europe, which in turn result in products from meat to dairy to bags and shoes. Talking the talk, several of the most influential companies in forest risk supply chains have pledged to ensure that the Brazilian suppliers are deforestation-free by signing the Declaration on Forests and Consumer Good Forum resolution. However, according to the Global Canopy Forest 500 project and Amazon Watch, they have been falling rather short. For example, JBS, the biggest beef exporter, has faced repeated accusations for sourcing cattle from illegally deforested land, among a few other wrongdoings. 90% of the soy exports are used to feed animals in China and Europe, a market dominated by giants such as Bunge and Cargill. Both have faced fines in 2018 for sourcing from land that had been illegally cleared. In the last July, Cargill has been nominated by Henry Waxman, former member of the US Congress and chairman of Mindly Earth, as the worst company in the whole world for its environment and human rights practices. It is hard for the consumers to know which companies to boycott. Therefore, it is the responsibility for the consumer governments to show their commitments in tackling deforestation and climate change by requiring large companies to carry out due diligence in their supply chains. The EU is expected to maintain commitments to restore the world's forests by introducing EU-wide corporate due diligence legislation to ensure companies are required to identify, prevent, and mitigate environmental impacts in their supply chains. The EU trade deal with the Mercosur is an important opportunity for the member states to actually show whether they really are committed to tackling deforestation and climate change, or if it's only about maintaining the discourse. Well, we don't know what's going to happen with Brexit, but here we go. Ricardo Salles, Brazil's environmental minister, came to Europe last week to meet with the German pesticides, BASF, Bayer, the car giants Volkswagen and Mercedes-Benz, a British fossil fuel and mining organization, and DEFRA. This was supposed to be a secret agenda, but it did not pass unnoticed by the protesters. Foreign investors have an enormous influence over what happens in the Brazilian Amazon by providing billions of dollars in lending, underwriting, and equity investment. According to the Amazon Watch, BNP Paribas, JP Morgan Chase, Barclays, Bank of America, and Citigroup provided together more than $1 billion in credit applies to the giants ADM, Bunge, Cargill, and Louis Dreyfus. JBF, Marfrig, and Minerva, the major Brazilian beef companies, received significant investments from foreign sources. JBS, for instance, has investments from Capital Group, BlackRock, Fidelity Investments, and Vanguard, having also received almost $1.2 billion in underwriting from Santander, JP Morgan Chase, and Barclays in the past 5 years. My colleagues at Preventable Surprises and I tend to be rather wary of claims such as those made by Blackstone and co-founder and CEO Stefan Schumacher, saying that his company is committed to responsible environmental stewardship, when the organization is also a major donor to climate denialist politicians such as the US Senator Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and President Donald Trump. Blackstone largely owns the Amazon terminal Hidrovias do Brasil and Pátria Investments, responsible for the construction of Contentions Highway, and the port to facilitate the cultivation and export of grain and soybeans. Part of Bolsonaro's plans to privatize and develop the Amazon rainforest will count on Hidrovias to help transforming the rainforest into a farmland. Concerned to how the fires of the Amazon started to trace back to their image, now updated, 244 institutional investors representing more than 30 countries and a sum of $17.2 trillion in assets under management signed a statement calling on unnamed companies to tackle urgent action in meeting their commodity supply chains or risk economic consequences. This statement is very welcome. It's a very welcome acknowledgement that forest deforestation has been overlooked issue by Brazilian businesses and their investors, and that very few companies are on track to reach the goal of ending commodity-driven deforestation by the end of 2020. But the statement still falls very short in imposing any factual change to business practice. What are the companies that really need to change? And by when? If they don't change their commodity-driven deforestation, which sort of economic sanctions would be put into place as a consequence of no compliance? Going back to the indigenous understanding of the social environment, with the climate change 1.5 degrees Celsius clock ticking, it is ever so crucial that investors and their clients go beyond green wishing and focus on the real-world impact, taking a systemic perspective. Unless investments and intermediaries, focus on the real-world impact, taking a systemic perspective, and take into consideration a collective role and clearly commit to zero deforestation strategies, it is not only the ethical sustainability of your business that is at risk, but the precondition of a future of your own children. Thank you. Thank you. I have this small booklet from our colleagues from Survival International. I left some here. They're very much connected to my intervention in terms of which sort of sustainable development has been brought to the rainforest. So please have a look. And do we have time for questions?
I think we've got a moment for questions. Do we have any questions for Grace? At the back.
I will
Jill.
nevertheless stay around for the whole day.
You may have to shout, Jill, if that's okay. Is that Jill? Yeah.
Thanks ever so much for coming today and sharing some of the research that you guys are doing. Could you share your slides and the research in those articles, because I think that would be incredibly helpful.
Definitely.
In terms of like due diligence and supply chain.
With pleasure.
Are all the speakers happy? I can just circulate the slides to the list. Yeah. Okay. I'll send them out to everybody. That's the easiest thing. Just go out to the whole list.
I will be around to answer it. Oh, yes, sorry.
Thank you for speaking. That was really interesting. You say we need to listen to indigenous people. How do you suggest the financial industry listens to you?
Well, I said two things related to that. Thank you for your question. The first one is the way we see the environment. We see the environment as something that is out there rather than incorporating this in everything that we do. The protesters and now are calling for our states to claim and incorporate the climate emergency and include the environment in every policy and program that the government is strategizing and taking to place. So we are quite late into doing that. So perhaps we have to be aware that the environment is part of everything that we do, not something to be used. So that's the first way of listening to the indigenous people. And the second is, reading that's going to be quite funny, because the way we perceive development, and we have been perceiving development so far, is not really doing well. I'm sorry. And this is quite important for us to kind of go back, perhaps circular economy, or investing into communities that are, dealing with the conservation, but somehow not only, putting to those nice papers saying that we will be doing, but actually make sure that you are doing by, checking the whole global value chain of the projects that we are producing or involved with.
Okay.
Thank
Right.
you.
If we can thank Grace. Really lovely.